Did you face any challenges as an immigrant, Leighton? Like, you hear a lot about new immigrants coming here, especially foreign trained physicians, and then having a very hard time getting a suitable job, a career for themselves. How did you find your way? And, what tips can you share for others who may be in that process?
Sure. Listen, I'll be honest with you. It was a lot more difficult than I thought it would be, because I moved across here having not without a job, with the idea that I would maybe take a little bit of time off and then start looking for a job. But I did think that it would happen quite quickly, because when I'd been across here for a couple of visits, I'd spoken to a couple of recruiters and they all said, with your skills, you'll find something quickly. So I got here and bought a very old house, spent some time renovating that, and then started looking for a job. And it did take a while. What did help, and certainly I would recommend to anyone, was I signed up just after I got here for executive coaching. I knew the culture here was going to be different to what I was used to working in, and signed up for a 5-month course of executive coaching that really was sort of my into Canadian business culture. And I was paired up with a lot of other individuals who were also looking for opportunities in the Canadian environment, not all immigrants. So that gave me good insight into, business culture, and in fact, the whole Canadian way of life here. It also gave me a good network. And certainly, I was always told when I got here that you would find your role through a network rather than through any recruitment process or anything like that. And I think that sort of basically was how it happened. So, my advice for anyone moving here would be start networking before you get here, follow up, and you've got to make networking your job. So I had an enormous spreadsheet and I met with anyone who would meet with me. And I can tell you, I was again absolutely amazed. I would get hold of people and ask for a meeting. Very few people didn't meet with me. Busy people, hospital CEOs. Many of the emails I sent off, I thought people won't respond. They responded, met with me, and everyone wants to help. And the other bit of advice is, go in with an ask. Don't just go in and say, this is my story and I'm here, and expect them to put the pieces together for you. You've got to say to them, this is what I've got, this is what I can bring to the table, this is what I'm looking for. And they need just a little bit of a hook to be able to, to either help you out themselves or to refer you to someone else. So you've got to have a very clear idea of what you're looking for.
That's such a great message and such a great story, because it is all about networking and the people you know.
I joined the Ontario HIV Treatment Network, which is a publicly funded body that looks at research and capacity building in the HIV sector in Ontario. And I joined there. I'd done a lot of HIV work in South Africa. So HIV is an enormous problem in South Africa. And I had done, clinical work as well as a lot of policy and leadership work in HIV. So I had the background for that. That job, again, came to me through a network, but it made sense. It was never going to be my forever job, but it gave me a very good working life in Toronto. By then, I had also joined, just shortly after I got here, I joined the board of Casey House. One thing I knew that I wanted to do was do volunteer work when I got here. And just shortly after I got here, there was an advert in the Globe and Mail for board members for Casey House. With my HIV background, I went and interviewed for that, and I got that role. So I was already on the board of Casey House when the OHTN job came up. So it made good sense. And I spent just short of a year there, enjoyed the team I was working with. But as I say, when the Closing the Gap opportunity came up, that made sense to me. It was a health systems job. It made more sense to me.
And in terms of networking, you said you would speak to anyone who is willing to speak to you. And how did you go about reaching out? Was it purely through emails like LinkedIn, or what was your strategy?
A lot of it was email. I think email is, especially when you're asking a favor, I think an email is a less intrusive way of doing things, and people can also answer when they want, and if they don't want to, they don't have to answer. So a lot of it was initial referrals, and then any name that was given to me by a contact I would get hold of, and then I found it just mushroomed from there. It really it went on, and I had, by the time I'd sort of landed at my jobs, I had a fairly big network, and I knew a lot of the players in the healthcare sector here. So yeah, largely email, and then definitely LinkedIn. LinkedIn also helps, there's no doubt.
What would you say is the biggest challenge you are facing today as a leader, Leighton?
Undoubtedly, because I live it every day, is health human resource capacity. And this is true for all my colleagues, in my collaborating companies. Health human resources capacity is a major problem for us, and it's a huge concern, because it's easy to say we're short of capacity, but when you translate that into people not getting care, it makes it more real. And for me, that's our biggest challenge. And that certainly is, I'm not a person that has great stress or has a problem with stress, but the capacity challenge, I suppose, is something that does, if I wake up at night, that's what I think about. I'm not sure if it wakes me up. I'm a good sleeper, but if it wakes me up, that's the first thing I think about is how are we going to build capacity in the healthcare sector to make sure we can provide care to a population that's going to require more and more care as they age. That's my single biggest challenge and stress is capacity, there's no doubt.
And what have you already done in terms of addressing this particular challenge?
It's got to be, there are systemic issues, and there are also, it's at a number of levels. So obviously at a systemic level, we do everything we can to advocate. And again, I'm fortunate enough to be able to do that as part of closing the gap, but also as part of a broader collaborative. And I'm working with some of my colleagues in the industry that we advocate for the integration of home care into the system, for the recognition of home care as an equal partner in the system, and for funding that's going to allow us to attract capacity. So, at a system level, doing as much as we possibly can to showcase the sector, and then at a more organizational level is a number of employee engagement, recruitment, and retention initiatives. And there's a lot that can be done, but obviously more that could be done with more funding. And one doesn't like to harp on the fact that we need more funding, but that does come down to it. But there, I think one can't stand back and say we're not going to do anything until we've got more funding. But say, what are the things we can do within our current system, and do all of those things, whether they are, of more of a softer nature, or whether they're specific policies, but making sure that we're doing everything we can to engage, recruit proper talent, and retain it. So we really have to make sure that we are the best placed for people to be, so they're enjoying working where they are and they stay there. Not only that, they get their friends and colleagues to come and join.